Have you been told you need to stop doing what you love, whether it's exercise, running, or a sport? Well, here at Dynamic, we don't like that answer. In this podcast, we'll talk to leaders in the health and wellness space from Southwest Florida to get the solutions you need to get you back to doing what you love. Welcome to the Dynamic Naples Podcast. What's going on, Southwest Florida? Today, I'm going to be talking about iodine. Iodine deficiency is super common. It's kind of something that's not talked about a whole lot. Maybe you haven't even heard of it, but it's super important. So during the Ice Age, glaciers came down and pushed all this iodine towards the coastal regions. So for that reason, iodine is mostly in the ocean and in the coastal shores. When the waves come up to shore, some of that iodine and that ocean breeze comes off, and some of that iodine is implanted in the soil. So basically it's found mostly in seafoods and vegetation near the coastal regions and in the animals that ingest that. But because of a lot of intensive cropping and use of alkaline fertilizers, some of these iodine levels are depleted. So basically all vertebrates, all mammals need iodine, particularly for the thyroid gland. So thyroid gland takes T4, converts to T3, and it needs iodine to do this. And that controls a lot of functions of the body, particularly metabolism, but affects basically all cells have iodine receptors, so it can affect any part of the body. It's most commonly known for hypothyroidism, so if you're feeling fatigued or have some brain fog, or you've developed a thickness to your neck or even a goiter, that's caused by an iodine deficiency in hypothyroidism. It's also super important with fetuses and developing children. Most mental retardation and cretinism is caused by an iodine deficiency. So super important stuff. So for just a little bit of history, prior to the 1920s, iodine deficiency had become really prevalent in the Great Lakes, the Appalachians, and the northwest regions of the United States. And actually this area became known as the goiter belt. And somewhere between 26 to 70% of children had a visible goiter. And this became a problem because when it came to the military draft, they couldn't accept people with goiters. So the government came up with a solution of putting iodine in salt. That's why today most salts or table salts are iodized. And this started in 1924. But in 1926, there were reports of thyrotoxicosis. So it seems like maybe the pendulum swung the other way too far. So probably too much of a good thing. But it did resolve a lot of goiters. So maybe spraying salt with iodine may not be the best source of iodine. There are some brands of salt like Redmond salt that's actually mined in Utah because it's deep down. It still has actually natural occurring iodine in it. But there are some other variables that are kind of important key players here. So there is a class of foods that are considered to be goitrogenic. So they contain goitrogens, so chemicals that can lead to lack of iodine they basically inhibit iodine absorption. This is the order Brassicalis. So that includes the cruciferous vegetables, things like kale, Brussels sprouts, cauliflower, broccoli. These things have a chemical in it called glucosinate, and it's kind of interesting. Glucosinolates. So it's a compound that when it's chewed or cut, it turns into isothiocyanate, which can inhibit iodine uptake. So, cooking these cruciferous vegetables will generally kill that compound, but unfortunately it also kills off a lot of the good nutrients that you get with it. Another problem is fluoride and chlorine, actually. So iodine is part of a group of chemicals in the periodic table called the halogens, and there's multiple, and there's like 6 or 7 of them. So that there's chlorine, bromine, fluorine, fluoridamine, and iodine. So they basically are very chemically related, and they compete for each other in the body. So a lot of drinking water is treated with chlorine and fluoride. So if you're drinking like city water, that stuff can be inhibiting the absorption of your iodine. So if you're living away from a coastal city, if you're living inland, if you're avoiding salt, maybe because you've been told that's bad for your blood pressure, which is not necessarily true, by the way, and you're eating a lot of cruciferous vegetables, and you're not eating foods that contain a lot of iodine, and you're feeling tired, or you're feeling fatigued, maybe your neck looks a little swollen, it's a good idea to check your iodine levels. So let me quickly just talk about some foods that are high in iodine. So that's going to be a lot of seafoods. So that definitely includes a lot of crustaceans. So oysters, shrimp, lobster are definitely very high in iodine. A lot of fish, some of the smaller fish are going to be a little bit better because they don't have as many of the other metals that are unfortunately in the oceans now. And then some of the coastal vegetables may have it. And there is going to be a fair amount in muscle meat of animals, depending on where they're from. If they're in coastal regions and they're eating, grass and what they're supposed to be, so grass-fed beef near coastal cities, they're going to tend to have some decent amounts of iodine. Now, as I was saying before, iodine's you've got receptors all over your body for it. So especially in the glandular tissues. So the same thing is true of animals. So if you're eating organ meats like liver, you're also going to get a fair amount of iodine. It's definitely also found in eggs. Okay, so if you're not eating a lot of animal products, you're not eating eggs, you're staying away from salt, and you have those symptoms I talked about, definitely get your iodine levels checked. Now, I will mention that there is something called Iodine-Basedow phenomenon or syndrome. That's basically if you're in an iodine deficient state and then you suddenly take an increase in iodine, it can have a negative effect and basically induce like a temporary hyperthyroidism, which is the opposite of hypothyroidism. So this is definitely, and there's another syndrome too called the Wolff-Chaikow effect. So that's basically the opposite of Iodine-Basedow. So just know that this is something that, if you do have iodine deficiency, you don't just want to go take a whole bunch of supplements because it can have negative consequences. And I would do this with somebody who's got a medical background. But just to put in perspective sort of these ranges, so to put that in perspective, the RDI of iodine right now is 150 micrograms, which basically the Japanese culture, they get somewhere between 10 and 15 milligrams of iodine a day. That's a huge jump. So 15 milligrams of iodine is 150,000 micrograms. So you can see there's a huge discrepancy from what we're told to have and what some cultures have. Probably somewhere in the middle is where we should be. But again, you don't want to just jump into these mega doses because there are some negative consequences if not done right. So that's what I have for you. I wanted to raise some awareness about this, especially if you are pregnant or breastfeeding. You really want to check your iodine levels. So that's all I have for you this week. I'll talk to you guys soon. Do you have unexplained pain, or do you wonder just how healthy you are? When was the last time you had your blood tested? Blood chemistry analysis is a great way to stay ahead of any health conditions, and now you can have control of your health with Let's Get Checked. Let's Get Checked is an incredible company that sends blood tests to your home. You can choose from over 30 different tests, whether that's liver function, testosterone, micronutrient, cholesterol, or C-reactive protein, which is a marker for inflammation. It's sent to you with free shipping, and you get your results in 2 to 5 days, no physician referral needed. Use the code DPT30 for 30% off. Go to letsgetchecked.com and use the code DPT30. Did you know that you can get started with physical therapy without a physician's referral? Physical therapists don't just solve pain, we get down to the root cause and keep it from coming back. We also discuss all things health, such as nutrition and lifestyle changes. If you feel that you could use some help, let's get on a free consult call. Go to www.dynamicnaples.com and sign up for a free call. Also, if you like this podcast, please give us a rating wherever you listen to podcasts. It helps us spread the message. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.